Hello and welcome, everybody. We are super excited to be welcoming Dr. Kim Nugent, and by the way, welcoming her back. She did one of these webinars for us previously, giving us really fabulous content from a book she had written before. And now she's got something else she's working on, and we are so excited to hear about it. It's called Pave Your Path. Give you a little bit of background on her. She's got 30 years of excellence for readers and clients. She is fabulous for helping people get confident, develop their communication, and then, of course, a lot of tools and techniques for people in the coaching world. What's exciting about what she's talking about today is the potential in terms of a niche or an opportunity for you as a coach. Based on some of the questions some of you submitted ahead of time, you're already working in that space, so we know that, and that's fabulous too. While the program is going on, you're welcome to submit additional questions. We've got the ones that were submitted ahead of time. You can feed them in again if you want to. And to ask additional questions, you can do one of two things. One is to raise your hand, and where there's an opportunity, we can unmute you individually so you can ask your question live. And then the other opportunity is if you simply type it into the question panel. I will be monitoring that all the way through and feeding those questions to Dr. Kim Nugent so she can respond to them. This is really a fabulous opportunity around some great content. So we're very, very excited about that. Dr. Kim Nugent, welcome to you. I am switching control of the screen over to you. I know you've got your PowerPoint ready. Please go ahead and jump in and take over.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm very excited, and hopefully for a lot of the participants listening in today, they're going to find hopefully a new market for them that maybe they didn't even consider for themselves. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and sort of the framework for today's conversation is paving your path, what's next for high school graduates. So many of our participants, I assume, are probably working in the space of mid-level managers, individual employees, those kinds of things. And so depending on what their niche is or their specialization, certainly that's natural. My path has taken me down this path in the last year, but I've done a lot of work in the high school space. And it's really important to me to kind of talk about what the possibilities are for our coaches that are listening in today as we kind of go forward. So I want the group to use the chat area, if that's okay, Kathy, for them to think about. Okay, great. So those of you all who are listening, do you remember what it was like in high school? So that's the first question. And the second question is, can you imagine what it's like now? So I have no idea what age you are that you're listening, but it may have been only a few years ago that you were a high school graduate, and it may have been a very long time ago that you were a high school graduate.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they're all younger than me, so.
And me. So let's go. I'm not even going to say what that is, but I still have the energy, I think, and the passion of being a high school student. That's the way I like to look at it.
Awesome. Actually, I got one response from somebody that I think is close to the same age category we are, and they said, yeah, I remember. So that's awesome. All right, everybody, type in your answers to the questions, please, so that we can start sharing them. I've got one person said, yes, I can remember. No, I really don't know what it would be like now. So that's a really fair, honest stuff. Somebody said, I've heard it's tough. Yeah. I've heard that one too. What else, everyone? Let's see. Yes, I remember, and I can imagine what it's like now because my son is a teen. Awesome. Love it. I know I've got a couple of educators out there. Some of them are at the college level. Let's hear from you, everyone.
Yeah, I think that's really great. While they're typing in the chat area, I can talk for just a minute about that. So, if we do have parents who are also coaches on the line, I think that you can definitely relate. So you can start to see the differences, I think, for our high school young men and women today. the reason that I really wanted to share this is that at whatever age you are right now, and if you take yourself back for a moment to high school, you might have been one of the lucky ones when you graduated and knew what you wanted to do. You might not have. It may have taken you a while. You might have changed your major in college a few times, or maybe you've just kind of found yourself in the coaching arena and you love it. You know, it gives you so much satisfaction when you start to see the kind of progress people are making. But I will say about high school students today, the truth of the matter is they have more pressure than ever before. The world is coming at them very quickly, and they're making a lot of decisions, albeit many times not the right decisions. Sometimes that's peer pressure, sometimes that's family pressure. And one of the things that they don't realize, as I said, I do a lot of work in high schools, and they're not thinking in terms of manifesting their destiny. They're just sort of following a pathway, but it's not really an enlightened or informed pathway, and they're not being exposed to a lot of things that are possible. And I think this is where the role of coach comes in. What I learned, and I am going to give a case study a little bit later in this webinar, but one of the things that I learned is that being a coach, as we know, has so many advantages. But when you're working with a high school young man or woman as the coach, you really are in a very special position because you're not the parent. And because you're not the parent, you don't have these emotional patterns, or you don't have a particular way of listening. You actually have a distinct way of listening to that young man or young woman. And again, you listen to them differently and they speak to you differently because it's out of mutual respect. And so thinking about those things is really important in really creating this very trusting relationship that we have as coaches, when no matter who the client is, but particularly with the high school student. Anything else in the chat area before I go on?
Yeah, I've got somebody who said, I remember high school, it was only about 8 years ago. I hear it's much harder now. Somebody else said, yes, they remember the current students lack purpose and direction. And then for the third question, I cannot imagine how high school is today.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Awesome.
awareness of how different it is from what it was for so many of us. So excellent.
Right. And so, you know, the participants that are on the call today, obviously you have a lot of experience and you definitely have talents and strengths and things like that. And whatever age you are, you know, it's really important to remember that it's not that way for young people today. I mean, I wish we could all transport our, you know, experience back to high school and it would probably turn out a bit differently, but we can't do that. So this is where we really need you. And this is what's important to me kind of going forward. But truthfully, I think there's never been a better time to be a teenager. And the reason I say that is simply because, number one, there's a lot of choices. But a lot of times they never get to experience those choices. They don't, unless, you know, that particular high school is bringing in a lot of people from a lot of different industries and talking to them about career pathways, they're really not exposed to that. So they may not have, some of our teenagers today have never really left their small town or their city. They may not have ever gotten on a plane. We could also have the opposite in the same classroom. They traveled abroad. They've had all kinds of experiences. So thinking about those things. But one of the things that your participant said in the chat area, which I totally agree with, is a lot of times they don't have a sense of purpose and they may not know the direction. And you may not know this, but because of the situation today in high time, they're definitely well-intentioned. They do an amazing job, but they're very over-leveraged. And the caseload is so great. You know, a young person will be very fortunate to have a 15-minute conversation with a counselor inside of 4 years. And so if they're not getting it from the counselor, where else can they get this information from? How else can we help form, you know, that? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is, you know, just as a reminder, through the Coaching Federation, through your dashboard, there are all kinds of assessments that you can utilize with any of your clients. So again, remember, going to the website and being able to access that through the assessment dashboard is a fantastic resource that's available to you. So again, just remembering those things to be able to bring in these other assessments as we work with our clients. So, my goal today really is to help define a new target audience for you if you're currently not working with high school students. And then in the future, a 30-week program through my book, which will not come out for a while. But again, we can talk about that. And then really, I want you to have a set of deliverables when you're working with that young person so that you can create a pathway for them. And another piece of that is really to work on the soft skills. So when I talk about tips for growth and development, I think that's really important because one of the things that our employers want, as we all know, is not only, obviously when depending on what pathway you choose, you're going to have some technical expertise, but who shows up at work is going to be that person who really owns the soft skills, who's, really is that team player, who does have excellent communication skills, who does show up on time and meets the deadlines, all of those things. But that doesn't happen when you turn 18. We have to develop those skills. And so, if we can be working with someone who's a junior, in my ideal world, it would definitely be a junior in high school. But if it's a sophomore, that's fine. And if it's a senior, it's fine. And even, community college students, some of you all had asked questions related to, maybe someone older. It's definitely never too late to have a coach, and we need coaches at different points of time in our lives and for different reasons. And then again, depending on your own expertise, this is an opportunity for you. And then really knowing what the resources are, not only for you, but your clients and their family members. And, there's a lot of, I will say, a lot of misinformation out there. And so we want to make sure that, we can provide them with the right information so they can make the right choice for their family. So in the pathways, to me, there really are so many choices, and it can seem way overwhelming and really a little amount of time when I think about that. So, and let me just kind of talk about a fact that I don't have in this slide, which I find interesting. We don't have a solution in education for this, but some of you all who are parents may remember when your son or daughter, if they're that old, that when they were in the 8th grade, your school probably did some career assessments with them, possibly, or they did assessments getting them ready to high school. And that sounds fantastic. So if you're a parent listening, I hope that you asked for those assessments. The second part of that is, unfortunately, just because the way the system works, even inside of the same district, but sometimes people move away to other districts, that information in 8th grade does not follow the student. So there's a complete breakdown with regards to, I took the assessment in 8th grade, but there's not a conversation in high school as my freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, or senior year to talk about what that sort of looked like and what the possibilities are for myself. So again, thinking about that. So I had a little fun with this, but I do want to think, I want you to think for a moment about your own area of expertise. So we're going to take a little tally in the chat area in just a minute. So if you take a look at the 7 pathways, so probably what most people today would say, well, what are you going to do when you graduate from high school? And they'll say, well, I'm going to go to university. That's just a standard answer without even thinking about it. Some people might say, you know what, I'm going to go to the community college, because it's close to my neighborhood and I can still work at the same time. I'm going to get my basics out of the way, and that's going to be a really great investment for my future. For some people, they know that they learn best by hands-on, and there's a particular trade or a vocational or career-focused school that they have an affinity for, and so they may go in that area. For other students, it may be the area of military because their family's a military family, or they feel very strongly about representing the United States, and they see other possibilities in terms of completing their 4 years within the military and receiving some amazing benefits from that. And then working full time because they're not quite sure yet and they want to find out what they want to do. And, for some students, that's a really great option to take a year or 2 or 3 off until they figure that piece out rather than jumping into something and then having debt and wasting time and feeling worse about themselves. And there's a small percentage that, honestly are going to open a business or they have a good idea. I always recommend going to work for someone at the same time and not quite doing that by themselves. Or the last option, which some parents can relate to, and I sort of write it with tongue in cheek, or sit on the couch. I try to soften that up a bit with saying it might be a gap year, meaning if they're really unsure, and I don't think moms and dads are going to fund that sitting on a couch for the year, is to consider joining the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, to be able to find out about themselves and learn about life and people along the way. There are a lot of things that young people do not know today about these pathways. So in the future, when the book comes out, but I have created a checklist, and there's a checklist for students to complete. So for example, visiting schools, understanding what the admissions requirements are, applying for scholarships, both inside that university or outside the university. There's some amazing resources. So I'm going to stop here for just a second. I don't think I have a slide for this, but I think it's important to share as much as I know with you if you're considering this, or if you even have a child that's maybe in 8th grade or high school or thinking about going on to college. There are two fantastic resources that you could do. And the first one is called FastWeb, FASTWEB.com. And let me tell you how that works. It's a scholarship site, and it's a beautiful thing. So if you have your son or daughter sign up for the site, they get, it can be daily alerts. They set up their profile. If they know what they want to study, if they know it's a 4-year, 2-year, whatever, if they know possibly the education area, it will send them specific scholarships they can apply for in that domain. Another area is a new one. It's a brand new site. It's called, unigo.com. It's fantastic. They have lots and lots of scholarships available. So again, what happens and I know that you all are dealing with mindsets. So in a young person's mind, many times they're thinking, why should I bother? I'm not going to get it. And nothing could be further from the truth. What you don't know from my background is that prior to sort of going out on my own and doing coaching, which I just love officially, I've always done coaching inside an organization, but I spent 20 years in higher education as a university president. So I know the other side of that. And I also want to have a disclaimer here to say, I do not believe university or college is for everyone. In fact, I know it's not. And so the sooner that we can help people navigate those best decisions for their life, the better it is. I think that sometimes students have a false impression, for example, about military. The majority even in our situation today, the majority of people who apply for the military do not get in. And that's very shocking for a lot of people. So again, understanding what the requirements in each one of these domains is really important. So if you were going to pick one of these domains, use the chat area to write down where you think your area of expertise is. If you were coaching a young person, if you had to pick one, you could pick more than one, but if you had to pick one, what do you think is your area of expertise?
Oh, this is going to be a fun one to see the variety we have on the call. So they're typing one of the bullet points from the screen, correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, awesome. So let's see. I've got just a couple so far. Come on, everyone, get typing. University, work full-time and entrepreneurship, working full-time, community college and university.
Great.
University professional school, university. I love this one. The stay home and sit on the couch.
I was hoping we'd get one of those.
So, yep, you got one. They have 2 clients in that category right now. Let's see, university, community college, and entrepreneurship, and then you've got university. So we're getting some variety here.
That's awesome. So, I was having a little fun about, sitting on the couch, but I will say that's a real problem because a lot of parents, I'll say many years ago, the idea was, you graduated from college, you left home and you did something, any one of these things. And we're finding more and more students, because they love their parents and they love their situation at home, they're not leaving. And their parents are expecting them to leave, and yet they haven't really found themselves. And this is where the value of the coach really steps in, I think, to be able to help them find that value. At the end of the webinar today, Kathy is going to send you an email, and it's my little gift to you. But one of the places that I always start to work with clients on is I like them to do a self-assessment. And so this is a small self-assessment. It's really, 7 of the strategies of 26 that I use with my clients. But one of the things that you can use it with yourself, you can use it with a young person. And so I talk about attitude, on a scale of 1 to 10, if, how would you rate your attitude, with 10 being excellent and 1 being poor? And then how can we start to work on those? And so one of the things that I love about coaching is that we help our clients uncover their blind spots. And this is a simple way to do it. You can modify it for anything that you want to do. What I will say at the end, it's a 2-page document. So attitude is pretty clear. Communication is clear. I think depth and emotional intelligence are clear. I picked ones that were appropriate for high school students. But if you're not sure what brand means, let me explain it really quickly, and then I'm going to move on to the next slide. And that is that, what do I want to say about that? What I want to say is brand is who you are. So Fast Company magazine, back in the early 2000s, Tom Peters wrote an excellent article called Brand You. And it's really about your brand as your portfolio, when you show up, how you dress, how you communicate, how you serve others. So it's interesting to me to have a conversation with a young person about that. So I do that in 2 ways. That brand conversation is, sometimes they might say, well, I don't even know what that is. And maybe that means they haven't been intentional. So you have some young people who really care about how they look and when they leave the house. And then you have other young people, they really don't care. If it's clean clothes, that's good. They don't care if it's wrinkled or anything else. But whether they were intentional or not, they have a brand, and people create perceptions around those brands. And so if we want to shift that perception, that's an area that we might want to work on if they haven't rated themselves very high. Another part of brand, which is very critical for our young people today, it's critical for all of us, but young people in particular, what I found is in working with students is in the area of social media. So they may have a number of social media accounts, and one of the things I ask them to do is do a social media audit, and it's very informal, but going back and looking at their posts, is there anything that they've posted that they should be concerned about? That, let's use something like, would your grandmother be embarrassed if she saw something like that? And so what they think is, hey, it's no big deal. It was Saturday night. It was my own time. I posted this picture. And then what happens? I think we all know what happens is that, that perception is a very poor perception. Well, there's nothing today. I don't care what your privacy settings are. Nothing today is off the record. And so they need to understand that part. They might think it's fun. So I would be curious right now. I want to stop for a minute and ask you all, have any of you all seen any of these situations where they really don't understand the impact of social media and how that truly is their brand, or any concerns around social media, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat?
Yeah, and Kim, while we're giving them a chance to type in, I am happy to jump in. My daughter had a friend in high school that ever since he was a little kid had a particular career he wanted to go into his whole life. His senior year of high school, one picture got posted on Facebook, and he could not go into that career field because of that picture. It was a party, and it included underage drinking, and it forever banned him for the career field he had chosen. So it was just amazing. And then I've seen, I used to do juvenile arbitration, and I've seen kids end up in the court system because of a post on Facebook. So hoping I was buying time for everyone else. I'm not seeing other examples come in yet. Maybe. Oh, here's
Okay.
one. Here's one. We got somebody caught up on the typing. It said, "Well, many may not care about their posts. I have found more are focused on posting what makes them look happy."
Mm,
That's a
sure.
really
Oh,
insightful
that's
comment.
good. I like that. But I will say that we read in the newspaper ourselves, obviously, the people who are older than high school students have either lost their jobs because they posted something completely inappropriately. But I will say one of the things that's really important to me, because I also work in the area of human resources, is that today, to look for a job, to be admitted into college, the software today is so much more sophisticated than it ever has been before. So you might, for example, send a resume out to a job lead before you ever get the opportunity to talk to a real live person. They've already done their due diligence. So they're looking to see if you're a keyword match, number one. But number two, what they're doing is they're going out and looking at your social media. And they're looking to see if what you're posting aligns with their values. And if it doesn't, that job offer may never come or may get rescinded based on that. And so I think that the naive part of young people, and maybe even college students, because I've had these conversations, is that they really do believe that their privacy settings are secure and it's just for their friends. And that is so not the truth. And so, you know, if you guys can be ambassadors for social media awareness, I think, you know, there's definitely a place for it. It's awesome if used well, but it can also come back to bite you, just like Kathy said in the example of her daughter's friend, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because those can be career dream crushing opportunities. And, you know, we don't want that for anybody.
Yeah. And I actually know, like, my daughter and others that just don't even do certain social media because they just don't even want to go there. So,
Yep, absolutely.
yeah.
No question about that. So, so we're going to go into some tips that I just kind of want to give you some strategies to think about how you could use that maybe differently, just kind of some of the things for people to consider. And in the book, we also have lots of questions to save you a lot of time. But I want to kind of talk about these 7 tips first, because these are things that will resonate with definitely with high school students for sure. So when I think about attitude on a scale of 1 to 10, it's one of my favorite questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your attitude? And so you can even play along and think for yourself for a minute in your own head, you know, is it a 7, an 8, a 9, or 10? You know, I am positive I'm not a 10. I wake up, I feel like I'm a very positive person. And yet there are times in the day, maybe you're tired and maybe your attitude isn't at its best, or you could be possibly stressed or something else or something like that. So I want you to imagine for a moment. So I hope that I don't know this for who's participating today, but if you can imagine going to your local mall and you walk by a Cinnabon, and I hope everybody knows what a Cinnabon is, and I can't see your faces, but there's something that happens when you walk past a Cinnabon, whether you're dieting or not dieting or anything else, there is an aroma. And mostly people walk by and they smile because there is something about that cinnamon sugar that gets people to change in an instant. Or think about when you're in your house and you hear a song on the radio and it transports you back to a place like, oh, I love that song. It just gives me so many happy memories. Or, for example, you know, you're experiencing a vacation or something like that. And Joe, you know, you have this great positive attitude. And in a second, your attitude can change. Well, in a second, it can also change the opposite way. And so really knowing what your triggers are to get you back to that happy place, that positive place, is a really important skill set to have so that you can be that person who shows up on the team at work or in school or whatever that happens to be, or in your family, to be able to contribute. And this is one of those areas that I think that we don't always really talk about, uncovering these blind spots. And I said I am a very positive person, but I have to be honest, and I don't wake up that way. So what I do in the morning is, I started this a year ago, January, And so the first thing I do before I get out of bed is I am very, there'll probably be people on the call who are spiritual and some that aren't, but I before I get out of bed, I actually say 3 prayers, and then I say 3 to 5 things that I'm very grateful for. And I'll be honest with you, when I first started this, the first 4 days, I said the normal things like, oh, I'm happy, I'm really grateful for my family and my friends. And it seemed rote. On the 4th day, I'm like, Kim, seriously, you really need to take another look at this. And then all of a sudden I reframed that and I started looking for all the things that I'm grateful for. And every day it's more and more and more. And these are real things I'm so grateful for. It's little things, it's big things. The other thing that I do then is I'm getting ready. I don't listen to the news in the morning. For me personally, unless you're working in news, it doesn't frame my day in a positive way. So I turn on YouTube or something, some kind of video or something I can learn, something that's motivational, something that's affirmational, so that I set the frame for the day. Because if I lose that frame as I'm going to work, then I want to make sure I can go back immediately and think about how I started my day and those things that I'm so grateful for. And it's been one of those strategies that's really made a huge difference in my life. And I'm very cognizant of that. But if if in the afternoon that your energy wanes or something else, then sort of prepare for that. Maybe walk around your building or your house or, get a drink of water or have a conversation or turn on a song that makes you happy to be able to kind of get back in frame. And particularly, so let's go back to high school students for a minute. What do we remember? I remember in high school about that attitude piece, which goes something like this. I think our emotions ran pretty high in high school. And so sometimes we're really, super excited about things. And other times, we're really just very upset and angry. And it's kind of a pendulum piece. And so how do I regulate that so that I can bring my best self, to the situation? The next is in the area of, as I said, brand and social media auditing and making sure that they start to think about the impression that they're making. And it's best to start thinking about that in high school before they go on those job interviews, before they go on an admissions tour at a community college, or they show up for an interview at the military, or they're presenting their idea, maybe for a Kickstarter group, whatever that is, that they really want to start to think about how do I show up so I can present my very best self. And again, asking them their questions about how they would relate to that. And because those are opportunities for you to be able to work with them over time so they can start to see those improvements. Next is in the area of communication. And, we can talk a lot about communication, but I want to say that we all know the communication model is 7% words and 93% is tone of voice and body language, and making sure our body language is 100% congruent with the words that are coming out of our mouth. And I think sometimes that's really difficult for people to gauge sometimes. Sometimes we're not even aware of our body language, but things that happen a lot. This was with adults as well as high school students. But if I don't like something, those of you all who have high school sons or daughters, or, you're around high school people, or maybe you have high school students, when they're upset or they don't like something, what are some typical body language signs that they give off? If you want to put that in the chat area, that'd be great.
I'm chuckling, just anticipating what's coming in here.
Can't wait to see it.
In the meantime, while they're typing in those body language signs from them, somebody mentioned that you can monitor with Google alerts to see posts that may be related to you, and so that was a recommendation. So
that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, everyone, what are those body language things you see with those teenagers? Rolling eyes, and I got a little LOL there. Cross arms, step back, roll their arms, cross arms, stomps feet, slouch down, roll their eyes to their friends, check out their phone. These are great.
Yes. Fantastic. And so Our job at coaches is to kind of bring these things to light so that they can start to manage it. I think sometimes, and I've even seen adults in meetings do exactly what you all just described, every single one of those. And so they think that, because they're sighing or they're rolling their eyes or they're crossing their arms, like they're just so put out that they're in this meeting. What message is that sending? That kind of relates back to brands. So, people are forming perceptions, and those perceptions are so hard to change. First, you have to change your behavior, and then it takes longer to change the perceptions that people have formed around you based on these little bitty things, seemingly to the person, and yet all of a sudden, it's not a little bitty thing. It's actually quite a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I think about this, we've only handled A, B, and C. We haven't even gotten through the other 23 letters of the alphabet. So this will be a long-term coaching engagement for you all.
Yeah.
But so worthwhile, because, what if you could impact, and I think about this often, what if you could impact our future at this age? What if they did walk across that stage at graduation and they had a whole new skill set based on working with you? And I think that's really critical today. And they need that kind of support. This is one that I feel very strongly about, whether it happens to be an adult or a high school student also. And a lot of our students are not receiving this information in high school. Many of you might even be, you might be certified in emotional intelligence as one of your areas. There's so many fantastic resources online, YouTube videos and things like that if it tends not to be your area. But I definitely think that one of the things in terms of emotional intelligence is, one, we have to be more self-aware. Nobody can uncover a blind spot by themselves. This is where they need you. This is the benefit of the coach. And I've told this story recently. I don't think I've ever shared it with Kathy in this group, but, there's a lot of fantastic work out there. And, there's a shift a number of years ago where we start to focus on strengths finders, and a lot, we hire for strength, and those are important aspects. Where I think we may have missed an opportunity is to take a look at the blind spots. And let me give you an illustration. So I happen to live in Houston, Texas, and, I love living here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. However, Houston comes with some issues, and traffic happens to be one of those. And so we always have a lot of traffic. So I get to actually practice having a positive attitude every day when I get on the freeway, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, I know that when I get in my car, I have a blind spot, as you all do. And so if I forget for a moment and I happen to kind of veer into that next lane for just a moment, it could potentially have catastrophic consequences if someone is right there and I'm hit. That's the kind of things that we don't really talk about when we're talking with people in terms of career or choices about manifesting their destiny or paving their path. And if I don't know what my blind spots are, I can't really work on those things. And I keep showing up the same way, wondering why I'm getting the same results. And so really taking a look at working on self-awareness first. And then once I know where I'm going to work, then I need to work with you on self-management. How do I manage those things? We can't stop our emotions because they're there. They're going to happen. But one of the first things you can help your clients do before you do anything else is once they start to feel, and it's a body sensation, if you're starting to feel angry or stressed out, overwhelmed, frustrated, it goes through your body, it goes through your brain, through the back of your brain, through the amygdala. And before anything happens next, if you simply teach your clients to breathe for a moment before they say anything, it's a simple strategy, but it absolutely works. So I can get control over those emotions. I can manage those emotions more effectively and not say what's on my mind and have that turned out disastrously. And so we want to kind of be thinking about those strategies that can help them cope, that are very practical, very simple, and they can implement them right away. And then, of course, the next is really relationship management, whether that's in our families, whether that's at work, whether that's at school. And then, of course, the other one is certainly being socially aware. So walking into a situation and being able to pick up on the clues. That comes later in life, but they can start to learn that skill. And so those are the 4 components of emotional intelligence when I think about opportunities to work with young people so that they can work on that skill set. Mindset. This is another one. So how many of you all, well, I'm not going to ask this question this way. I'm going to explain one thing, and then I am going to ask a question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if you were thinking about for yourself first, do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? So the fact that you're here today on a webinar tells me you have a growth mindset. You're interested in learning for yourself, improving a situation, getting some more tools and resources to use with your clients. Fantastic. We're not 100% anything. On the other hand, where are the areas in your life where you might be fixed, where you say no? No problem with that, except that the root cause. What's the root cause of being that no? Then what is the self-talk? Or you try something. So your young person tries something and they go, I'm never doing this again. I quit. That's a fixed mindset. It's all the self-talk that we tell ourselves. So I like to think of a growth mindset this way. A growth mindset is you're praising the effort and it's a journey. A fixed mindset is it's a destination and you stop and you give up. And it's really important to sort of listen to young people and even our family members when they say those things. My mother is in her late 80s, and it's interesting to me right now, sometimes she'll say something and it's definitely a fixed mindset. And I'll say, hey, Mom, you're really great at this. And she's saying things that sort of limit her abilities, and she's so fantastic. And so sometimes she just needs to be reminded that she's saying that. She's actually saying it out loud. And I think that that's, again, where you come in and catch people when they say those things, or, whether it happens to be they failed a test or they didn't get into a band competition or they tried out for cheerleading, whatever it happens to be, is, it's an opportunity to learn something from that. What can we do, learn differently and not give up? And this is a funny thing. Somebody told me this the other day and I had kind of forgotten about it, but in 2016, I was a definite no to ever writing a book. And then I was introduced to a little workshop. I went to this workshop. I came out with a completely different mindset about writing a book, and I've written 4 so far, and the 5th one's coming out. So I had to examine why was I a no? What was going on with me? And, I was able to kind of work through that. So we're not always in growth mindset mode, but it's really a very interesting exercise for you to explore that, and then the kind of language that we use when we try new things. This is one of my favorites, which is I love thank you. It's my 2 favorite words in the entire world, and that's because sometimes we don't use it as much as we should. I wish I could teach a course on the art of thank you. And it's really just not only is saying thank you, but I think it's very important. And anytime I'm doing a face-to-face live workshop and I do something similar to this, I literally take packets of thank you cards and I give them away. Because the art of writing a thank you note, handwritten, is sort of gone away. It's disappeared a bit, but it means everything to people. So if you can't do that, an email's fine. It's not as great as a handwritten one. Saying it out loud, being appreciative for the little things in life, really go a long way in building relationships with people, regardless of what that is. So this is where you come involved. These are all the things that you can help young people with regards to how they can manifest their destiny. But I wanted to share some statistics with you. So first statistic. So I want you to, for those of you all who do have children, but you certainly have been around children, so you know this. So when your friends or yourself found out that you were going to have a baby, you're super excited, and then you have all these possibilities and dreams and things like that. The baby's born at whatever pounds they're born. So from the time they're born until they're 7 years old, the truth of the matter is they grow physically. You can actually see it. So if you have that visual for just a minute, you're seeing that. If we go to 18 to 25, for example, young people are growing at that same rate, not physically, but mentally. and experientially. And so there's just a whole lot of maturation that's happening, and they're trying things and those kinds of things. But that brain is really developing at the same rate from the time they were born until 7. It's kind of mind-blowing if you think about it for a minute. So again, they're going to be exposed to a lot of things that maybe they've never been exposed to, like money management, getting up on time without mom or dad, those kinds of things. And so they're trying to navigate those things using a credit card, for example. So a lot of our young people today are leaving and they don't have a grasp on financial management, and it's definitely represented in our country today. The other thing is about college-bound statistics. So for every 100 students that graduate from high school, about 66 of those people head to college. Only 20 of those, if we're lucky, graduate. And typically what happens is if 100 students enter their freshman year, and I'll go to the end of the year, you probably only have about maybe 60 left, and then it goes down about 20 every single year. So that's a real problem. So think about that for a minute. If that's true, if 20 do graduate and 6 people start a career, what do you think of the statistics, and where are those people? Where are those other people? If they're not in college graduating or starting a career, where are they? So if you'll use the chat area, that would be great.
This will be a fun one too, to see what answers come in. And by the way, while we're waiting on those answers, get typing, everybody. One comment from what you were saying earlier was keeping an attitude of gratitude. Love that one. Yes. All right. So a couple answers have come in. We've got moving back home with a little a smiley that has a wink. We've got trades. Some are on the couch living off their parents. More students stay home with parents longer. Working one or more jobs.
Yes. Absolutely. So
struggling to find focus and or direction.
Right. So this is, again, whoever said that, I love that, because I'll tell you why. They don't have the luxury now of being inside the high school setting and don't have a structure in place. And so if they're home on the couch, they don't have somebody. They need a coach. They need a mentor. They need someone to help direct them, to give them purpose and find out what they need. So going back to the assessment dashboard that we talked about before, through the Coaching Federation is one place to start to be able to get them thinking in a new way. And that's where you come in. Okay. All right. So, ask about your area of expertise. You don't have to be an expert in everything. And again, I developed these checklists, but, I find that, fortunately you start from what you know. You're in, let me even back the train up for a minute. So each of you got to coaching in a different way. So you may have owned your own business. You may have worked your entire life. You may have gone to college or, gone to trade school or went through the military. So you came up different pathways, and then you chose to start coaching. And so one of the questions that was submitted earlier before we even started the session was, what about certification? And I think coaching certification is critical. You need a methodology, you need the training and development, you need the practice so that you can get the best outcome for your particular client. Now, what I also believe is in higher education, in any of these areas, that we use words and vocabulary, unfortunately, to exclude people rather than include people. So if you think about, if you worked for a company before, your company probably had all these acronyms and you had your own little vocabulary. And so we don't really want to exclude people. We want to help inform people. If English is not your first language, is also an issue, because maybe the student is great, but when they go home and talk to mom and dad, not so much. They don't really understand those things. And so we want to be able to explain that. So admissions, a lot of admissions requirements have changed a lot. You have lots of options today. You don't necessarily have to go to a campus today. You could actually take online classes. You could earn your degree that way. Well, let me tell you something. One unknown fact that I learned recently from a high school counselor, I had no idea. And just in a few short years, everything changes. So if it's an online situation and the student is applying online, the schools are looking at the traffic. In other words, how much they can actually tell based on your IP address, how long you stayed on the website, where you went in the website, what you were interested in. If you just simply logged on once, did the application, and that's it, and you didn't really explore, if they have strict admissions requirements, they're not even going to consider you. They're going to call you an uninterested student. Had no idea. Again, visiting colleges just to sort of get a sense. If this is a person who does like smaller intimate classes as opposed to these large campuses that have 30, 40, 50,000 students, that's an important fact to know. Again, exploring scholarships. The best place to go for a scholarship, first and foremost, other than FastWeb and Unigo, is to go straight to the school you're considering. They have fantastic scholarships before you ever get there. A lot of times, if you don't apply before your freshman year, you don't get them because they don't offer them for sophomores and juniors. Maybe a lot of people today on the call did not know that. And then a lot of students aren't financially prepared to go to school, and so they have to apply for FAFSA, which is the financial aid that they would need to be able to help support them while they're in school. And then, of course, they'll have payback to loans and debt at the end of that for a period of time. So you have to figure out, this is another thing that I think is important about visiting colleges, is what are the job opportunities when they leave and what are the starting salaries? And, do they have assistance in terms of career services to be able to help them navigate that? And then how long is it going to take to pay back that debt? I always like this question: what's my total debt going to be when I graduate from college? A lot of schools will tell you, some won't. And so it's not just the credit hour charge, it's the entire package. Books, for example, or are you living on campus? Those are the kinds of things that I think are really important. As I mentioned a couple of times already, those assessments that we have inside of the Coaching Federation website is really fantastic. I also have another assessment that I use just for education. So again, just something else to consider is at promotionprotocol.pathwayu.com. This is actually an assessment that helps them navigate their college majors. There's a small charge for it, but again, I would go back first to the Coaching Federation website first and use those assessments because they're awesome.
Yeah,
and then again,
to jump in, Coaching Federation, I don't know that they offer assessments that people can access. Those who are graduates of our school do all have an assessment dashboard where they can get assessments.
Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. I knew that.
No worries, no worries, no worries.
I'm glad you stepped in. But again, this is just one for education majors or jobs that they're highly suited for or not suited for. And it really takes a look at their personality, their values, and purpose. And so I've used that when somebody's really confused. So again, one of the things, what I really liked about the chat and some of the responses as we went through today, Kathy, is the fact that particularly in the area of expertise. So the other great thing about this organization is the fact that you have a network. And never discount that network. So if, for example, you were working with a high school student and they chose a pathway that maybe that wasn't your area of expertise, obviously they need to do some work on their end, but you can reach out to someone else in your network to kind of bring in that expertise, if you will, to be able to find out the things that you need to know to kind of hone your own knowledge about something as well. So I just think about, we don't ever go on our own paths by ourselves. You didn't get to where you are today by yourself. So thinking about utilizing the people inside our organizations to help us become better as we go forward. And then again, you become the counselor at their fingertips. So again, how many of you all, if you put that in the chat area, how many of you are currently working with high school students and how many of you are not? So yes, if you are, no, if you're not.
And curiosity, Kim, do you want to expand it and find out who's working with college students as well?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So everyone, yes to high school, yes to college, or no to both. So I've got one that actually focuses on graduates or older. Let's see. I've got another one coaching high school girls. I've got several people saying no. I've got a few people that are saying it's something they're considering.
So I want to hear from the people who said either graduates or high school girls. So for two of you at least, those of you who are working with high school students, in the chat area, if you'll type in and Kathy can share with all of us, really what have you found rewarding working with high school students?
Okay, so, and I'm still getting a couple more answers to the first question. So we're looking for what's rewarding about working with high school students. And by the way, we've gotten a few more responses in that regard too. So, Kim, while they're waiting on that,
Yes.
one thing I'll share is how interested they are in being real when you have a conversation. To me, that's something I find rewarding. Here's another one: the joy on their face when they find they are worth so much more than they think. And the example for that is inner city girls, and that they have so many more options.
Absolutely. I think confidence and self-esteem is just so critical, and you provide that, listening to them authentically. You have experience, but, I think they feel so well respected by you. It's just amazing. And in some ways, it's sometimes because they don't have as much experience, it's almost easier to work with them. I never knew that personally until I started working with high school students. So I agree, it's very rewarding. Anything else in the chat area?
Yeah, they're talking about it's rewarding to see them realize they have tons of opportunities and potentials, giving them knowledge and alternatives. Those are the additional answers that came in.
Yes, so I love that word alternative. So sometimes they tend to be singular focused because of their family life or what they've been exposed to, right? And so, when you think about where you are today, you've been exposed to a lot of different things and how much you've changed and shifted with that. And so to be able to expose them to those things is just an amazing gift that you can give them. So really, you are the solution to guide them through the journey. And again, there's some deliverables at the end of this. In my perfect world, when they walk across that stage at graduation, they will have already figured out where they're going, and they will have done all of these things like take a school visit, apply for scholarship, apply to get admitted, those kinds of things. Have done their social audit. But over week by week coaching, which is what I always recommend, and I always recommend at least 6 months, if not longer. 7 is better, because I think it takes longer to change some of those soft skills, and they need to internalize that. And your ability to ask really pertinent questions and to really listen authentically to them and not have distractions is very important. And you bring in your own expertise to help guide them. So again, those deliverables, depending on each one of those areas of opportunity, I think are very important, and knowing how to get there. I want to say really quickly before we end in about 4 minutes, I have worked with high school students, and I've actually used this methodology, and I want to talk about one young man. And I was a little hesitant to take the client on, but I said, I would do a regular, his mother called me and was concerned, and he's very, very bright. Long story short is that we did an intake call, and I said, if he chooses to go with me, absolutely, and everything I talk with him is going to be confidential. And she honored that, and we went through the program together. And what I will say is that when we started, little did I know he was angry. He has changed his attitude with regards to parents and administrators. One of the things we worked on, H, is habits. And so I asked him to just simply consider a habit he could work on. He gets to choose. And he said, well, Kim, I could probably do my laundry and then fold it and then stack it, and it wouldn't be wrinkled, and my room would be organized. And I'm like, well, is that something you're willing to do? I never assume anybody's going to do anything. And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, he's never stopped doing that. He's not missed a Saturday since. He did not have a job. He did not have a resume. He was in band. Did not drive, and at this point he has a resume. He sent it out to 3 different groups. He got 2 job offers. He's working. He's kept his job, which is awesome. He is studying for his test for driving, and the other thing is that he has just become really a happy person, and he's so confident. He has written a scholarship letter. It is fabulous. It's not due yet, and so he's tweaking it a bit, but I'm just so proud of him. He is so different, and he's now today very well groomed. He really cares about himself. Before he didn't. And so he just thought, hey, I show up and that's how it is. So again, I mean, I love just examples like that to be able to talk about the difference that we as coaches make as opposed to parents, because there's such an emotional connection. Sometimes you can't be as objective as you need to be. So I'd love to know from everybody, you know, in the chat area, what are you taking away? What has you thinking differently? Or what are you willing to try based on anything I've said?
Oh, those are awesome questions. This is a great opportunity for everybody to share, because what will happen is whatever you share, everyone else will have ideas from it too. So hopefully we got people typing out there and we can share it. To let all of you know, in the meantime, I am going to be emailing you a link to the recording of this presentation on YouTube. And when I send you that email, I'm going to CC Dr. Kim Nugent on it, so that you will have her email as well. And on top of that, I'm attaching that document that she promised she's going to share with all of you. So you will have access to that immediately and be able to use it. One thing she did mention to me, I asked her earlier, her book is coming out in September. And I said, well, what if some of the people here actually really want to go through and learn this process? She said, go ahead and reach out to her. And that way you can have that conversation about accessing it ahead of time, because she'll have options. So Dr. Kim Nugent, in the meantime, you've got people saying a little validation and a lot of relevant context regarding the younger generation. Somebody else said, reinforcing my thoughts of moving forward with potential college coaching. Somebody said, I really loved the art of thank you. I believe this is one of the steps of gratefulness. So we're getting some thank yous. Somebody saying I have a broader understanding of the student coaching market. So that was great. They want to try the questions assessments even with college grads. And this has opened my eyes to an area of clients that I never considered working with. So that's super exciting.
Well, I'm very excited. You know, I really appreciate everybody's input. It was great feedback for me. And Kathy, thank you for the opportunity once again. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for what you do every day to change lives.
Oh, thank you so much. And all of you do be watching. We'll get that email out to all of you right away. So thank you very much, Dr. Kim Nugent. We so appreciate having you here. We appreciate all that you brought to this group today. Make it a great one, everyone. Thank you so much. And by the way, there has been so many thank yous coming in the dashboard. This is great. You've got people saying, let's see, this is such important work. So many kids don't get this attention. So people considering doing it, and a lot of thanks to you. So thank you, all of you. That does close out this time today. We appreciate your being here today. Do watch for that email. Thank you, Dr. Kim Nugent.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone.